Would I be the asshole for dumping my girlfriend after she ignored my calls and messages and went clubbing while I was undergoing emergency surgery? I, 22 male, and my girlfriend, 22 female, have been together for 5 years. We've been together since high school, and until recently, I've always considered her to be my future wife. I've even bought a ring and was planning on proposing over the coming months. Well, last weekend, it was my girlfriend's best friend's birthday. She and her friends booked a private lounge at a club. Obviously, I didn't go since 1, I wasn't invited, and 2, I hate clubbing or anything associated with that. I was actually looking forward to spending an evening alone and just binging Netflix or something. Well, my girlfriend left around 9 p.m. and I just crashed on the couch and watched some YouTube. Well, around 11 p.m., I started to feel this distinct stomach pain. The pain you experience when someone hits you in the nuts. It wasn't bad at first, and I just thought my body was playing some tricks on me, but in the span of about 5 minutes, the pain just kept getting worse until I was basically stuck in the fetal position on the couch. Again, initially, I just thought that the pain would go away, but then I pulled down my pants, and it felt like my right testicle was starting to swell. The moment I tried to get up and grab my phone to inspect whatever the fuck was happening to me, I just collapsed to the floor. That was probably the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Imagine being pelted in the nuts over and over again. I did manage to crawl to the table next to the couch to get my phone. I immediately tried calling my girlfriend, but she declined my call. I then texted her that something was wrong and could she come home immediately. The club she went to is like a 5-minute walk from our apartment. I just put the phone down and started throwing up because of the pain. After throwing up for like a minute, it felt like the pain started to cool down a bit, and I grabbed my phone again, and that's when I saw her response. She just replied with a, quote, "What is it?" and like an emoji that's like an annoyed face, like,
Oh.
I tried calling her again, but as expected, she just declined it again. I then texted her that I need to go to the hospital now. She then asked for what, and I just replied with, "My balls hurt." I then just dialed for emergency services. I explained my situation to the emergency responder, and she asked if there was somebody that could drive me to the hospital, and I stupidly said yes. I thought my girlfriend would be home soon, and she would drive me to the hospital. I felt embarrassed to call an ambulance because my balls hurt. After I told the emergency responder this, she then told me that she would call me again in 10 minutes to make sure I was being driven to the hospital. I then put down my phone and went back to vomiting on our carpet. Again, after the pain went away for a bit, I checked my phone and saw that my girlfriend responded with laughing emojis. I again tried to call her, but as expected, she just declined again. She texted me that this wasn't the time to play games, and she then told me that if I texted or called her again, she would block my number. I again tried calling her, but she declined again. And when I tried calling her a second time, I realized she did actually block me. I went back to curling up on the floor, and now I started shivering. At this point, I didn't care about being embarrassed and just called emergency services again and asked for an ambulance. It felt like an eternity, but the ambulance eventually came and rushed me to the hospital. I don't remember much of surgery since I was sedated, but I remember waking up eventually, and my right testicle was being stitched together. The doctor informed me that I had testicular torsion, and I was extremely lucky to reach the hospital in time.
Oh my.
I could have easily have been forced to surgically remove my testicle. I checked my phone and saw the missed calls and messages my girlfriend left me. In summary, she came home from clubbing and smelled the vomit in our carpet. When she saw the vomit on the floor, she got mad and tried searching the apartment to find me. When she realized I wasn't there, only then did it hit her that I was actually being serious. I just texted her in which hospital I was staying at and my room number and then went to sleep. I woke up the next morning and saw my girlfriend sleeping on the couch next to my hospital bed. After she woke up, she started bombarding me with apologies. She thought I was joking, that I was trying to ruin their night, etc. I didn't have the energy to argue, so I just kept quiet. I was beyond hurt by what she did, and I wanted to break up with her then and there. Why the fuck would somebody ignore messages where their partner is begging them to come home? Not only that, she stayed in the club until 3 a.m. and didn't even consider going home to check on me. She did stay with me in the hospital for the remaining 2 days I was admitted there and did take good care of me, but I was still beyond pissed at her. Ever since coming home yesterday, I've been wanting to dump her, but at the same time, I feel like she genuinely thought I was joking and made a mistake. I feel conflicted and don't know how to proceed with this situation. Would I be the asshole if I dumped her? Am I overreacting?
Am I wrong for making my son's birth mom move out once the adoption was finalized?
For the past 7 years, my husband, 43 male, and I, 37 female, have been trying to have children, but we've been unsuccessful as we went to a specialist and have been assured that we can't have children. Our hearts were broken, and since then, we wanted nothing less than to become parents and have something to call our own. Last year, we decided we would volunteer helping at foster homes and helping the youth and young adults that were struggling with homelessness. While doing this, we met our son's birth mother, 19 female. She was pregnant and struggling with homelessness, and we offered to take her in, help her with maternity clothes, healthcare, transportation, and doctor's appointments. She took us up on our offer and moved in. And that's when she began telling us that her child's father wasn't in the picture and she had no way to provide for him. She didn't know what she was going to do and had no job or way of caring for him. She was 20 weeks pregnant around this time. As our bond grew, we told her our struggles with having a child of our own and told her that it would mean the world to us to have a child as we are financially stable and a loving family. We offered to adopt him and have her be a sister figure to him. We told her that this was completely her decision and that we would support whatever she wanted. After a few weeks, she told us that she wanted us to adopt him once she gave birth, and we agreed to an open adoption. We thanked her and we supported her in every way she needed, and she also had her own room in our home. Fast forward, she gave birth to our son, Aiden. I was there for the birth and our bond was unexplainable. Shortly after, the next morning, she signed off the adoption papers and terminated her rights. We then took him home along with her. About 2 weeks after his birth, she began becoming very clingy with our son. We explained that he was ours and she was welcome to help with him, but he was my son and I would make all decisions regarding him. This upset her and she felt hurt. We ultimately decided to ask her to move out once the adoption was finalized. We haven't had any contact with her since. We decided to close the adoption and we asked her not to contact us any further. His birth mother thinks I'm the asshole and accuses me of manipulating her with false pretenses. However, this is not true and Aiden is our son and I'm his mother, so I have to do what's best for him. So, am I the asshole? Yeah.
My parents told me that if I don't take my bratty little sister on my birthday girls trip, the whole thing has to be canceled. 3 years ago, my dad married my stepmom, and with her came my 12-year-old stepsister. Let's call her Leah. And listen, I know 12-year-olds can be a lot, and I mean, I'm not saying I was the greatest 12-year-old, but Leah is out of control. If she doesn't get her way, it is a full-blown temper tantrum. Literally like she's a toddler. If she asks for something in the store and she's told no, she will lay down in the middle of the aisle and scream and kick and cry until her mom gives in, because her mom always gives in. If the attention is not on her for 5 seconds, she can't handle it. One time during her brother's piano recital, she pretended to fall out of her chair and get hurt. Like, we saw her throw herself out of the chair. Like, it was clear it was fake. But he had to stop playing, everybody tended to her, and she was smiling the whole time. Oh, and don't even get me started on birthdays. For every gift that the birthday person opens, she has to open one as well. And when it's time to blow out the candles on the cake, she has to have her own cake that she blows out the candles on. And of course, she has to be invited everywhere. Even if she doesn't want to go, she wants an invitation. And if she finds out, let's say her mom went to the grocery store without inviting her, absolute meltdown. For my birthday this year, I decided that I wanted just me and my 3 closest friends to have a little weekend getaway where we all just went, we got an Airbnb at the beach and just hung out. And as my gift, my parents actually subsidized the trip to make it less expensive for all of us. It was so kind of them and I really appreciated it. They told me on my birthday that that's what I was going to be doing, and of course, Leah immediately asked if she could go. I kind of laughed and tried to play it off and told her that she wouldn't want to hang out with a group of girls in their mid-20s. Like, that wouldn't be fun for her. But she just kept saying, no, I want to go. I want to go. Like, I want to go to the beach too. And I'm waiting for my dad or her mom to say something, but they just sit silently. Honestly, I think she's just going to forget about it. She's a kid. Like, she wants to go right now, but the trip wasn't for another month. So I thought, if I don't say anything about it, and she's not going to want to go in a month, she's going to have other things on her mind. But I was wrong. For a few weeks, it seemed like Leah actually forgot about the trip. Me and my friends were super excited and started planning. Again, my parents subsidized it. They didn't pay for the whole thing. So all of us actually put our own money into going on this trip, and we were hyped. And I thought I was in the clear with Leah until about a week before, when somehow she was reminded that she had to go on this trip of a lifetime. And once she remembered this trip, she was not going to forget it. It was constant temper tantrums. She was crying to me all day, every day, asking if she could go. And I kept saying no. At first, I was really nice about it, but eventually I was like, you're not going on my trip. You have to learn what no means, which she didn't take well. And neither did my stepmom. She came yelling at me, telling me that I can't parent her child. But like, somebody has to parent her child. A few days before I'm supposed to leave for the trip, my dad and my stepmom sit me down and tell me that I have to take Leah on the birthday trip because she just won't let it go. I'm sorry, I have to take her? I'm not a babysitter. I'm not going to babysit her on my birthday trip. I mean, she's 12 years old. We're all in our mid-20s. It just logistically isn't going to work. All of the things we have planned are not suitable for a 12-year-old. So I say no. I say there's absolutely no way. I'm sorry that you don't know how to tell your daughter no, but this is my birthday trip with my friends, and it would make absolutely no sense to bring her. It also wouldn't be fair because my friends are paying to go on this trip. They're not going to be paying to babysit my bratty little stepsister. That's when they tell me that if I don't bring Leah, they are not going to subsidize the birthday trip anymore. I completely lost it. I break down crying. Mostly because my friends have already relied on my parents subsidizing the trip when planning their own finances. This isn't just affecting me, this is affecting my best friends, and I think that's absolutely not fair. I tell my parents this. I say that they can't just offer it, have people rely on that money, and then take it away. It'd be one thing if they realized that they couldn't afford to subsidize it, but to make it a condition of bringing Leah along is not fair at all, and it's not right. But they put their foot down. They said that that's how it's going to be. Now, my friends and I have already made non-refundable reservations, so we're definitely going on the trip. And I have two options. Do I bring Leah along, or do I dip into my savings and cover the subsidy that my parents are now not willing to pay? I really don't have the savings for the subsidy, but I do not want my birthday trip to be a babysitting gig. And even more than that, Leah is the worst kid to babysit. The entire trip would just be trying to give her everything she wanted to avoid her public temper tantrums. Happy birthday to me. Am I right?
The last straw was the fact that this nurse, who I expected to be so cruel to me because what I had done was truly horrible, she didn't look at that like she looked at me. Get ready with me while I tell you about a nurse who saved my life because she saw me as a human and not just a drug addict. When I was 23, I had a baby and I had been using heroin. I had been to rehab many times, and for some reason I just couldn't stop. It wasn't a surprise when they told me that I wouldn't be able to take him home. My addiction was not hiding. It was very obvious that I was struggling. The worst part of everything was the fact that I couldn't feel anything. I had been hurt so many times and I hated myself so much. Like, I was a prostitute and I couldn't live a life like that and have a conscience and care about people. I couldn't. I had to turn everything off, and I became this very cold hearted, kind of icy person. I remember being mad at myself in the hospital because I couldn't cry. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. The baby had to stay in the hospital to be treated, and I went home. And it was about 4 days later, I was in the ER with my boyfriend at the time, and he had something going on with him. I had this thought oh, I'm going to go look at the baby. I'm going to go check on him. And so I told my boyfriend what I was doing. He was like, whatever. And I got in the elevator and I went up to the second floor, and I went to where you can look through that window and see all the babies in their cribs. And I looked, and I found my baby, and he was there. He was sleeping all peacefully. I'd been to the ER several times, and the nurses were always really rude to me. And I'm sure it was because they thought I was drug seeking. I didn't have high hopes that nurses were going to be very compassionate to me, and so I always say I have no idea why I did this, why I suddenly had the courage to do what I did. But I went to the nurses station and knocked on their door, and this little nurse came out. She was so short, she was super southern, and she comes out and she's like, how can I help you? And I said, do you remember me? And she said, of course I remember you. And I was like, do you think there's any way I could see the baby? And she paused, and she was like, of course you can see the baby. Come on. She had me follow her into that little nursery room, and off to the side there was like a nursing room, had like a couch in it, and the light was off, and she wheeled him in his little crib into that room, and she kind of cracked the door, and she said, just take as much time as you need. I looked down at the baby, like not knowing what I'm supposed to do in this moment, and not even knowing like what possessed me to even ask to spend some time with him. This nurse's kindness, it was the combination of everything, but like the last straw was the fact that this nurse, who I expected to be so cruel to me because what I had done was truly horrible, she didn't look at that. Like, she looked at me. It was like that's what broke me. And I looked down at my baby, and I told him I was sorry, and I told him that I hoped he had a good life, and like that he'd be better off without me. And I was crying though, and it was like the first time I'd cried in forever. It was shortly thereafter that I ended up being locked up and reaching out to Jesus and stopping all substance use. And now I work in an addiction treatment center, and I have ladies who come in all the time, and they are struggling with the same thing, and they're so full of shame and guilt, and they're waiting for the stigma. They're waiting for people to just attack them, and I always get to say, I get it. Like, it's okay. Like, we're gonna get through this. I'm gonna help you no matter what. Also, I did the same thing, and now I'm okay, and my baby's okay. And then the twist that no one expected is that I ended up meeting him as a grown 18-year-old last year. And now he's part of my life. I never did find that nurse though, but I really appreciate her kindness. And I'm grateful to all the nurses out there, all the healthcare workers who serve with their heart and not their judgments.
Am I the astronaut for leaving my infant child home alone while she was asleep? Please read the whole thing. General statements of judgment without any intelligent feedback are entirely unhelpful. I am legitimately looking for flaws in my thinking. Context: I live in a very small town, the type of place with 8 roads where people drive golf carts to get around, and it's not surprising to see 6-year-olds riding the streets on their 4-wheelers or dirt bikes. My daughter is 6 months old and a very consistent sleeper. After she falls asleep, she doesn't wake up to eat until 4 to 5. She sleeps with only a pacifier, no blankets or toys in the crib with her. I have a network PTZ camera above her crib. The camera is set up to send a push notification to my and my spouse's phones if any movement is detected, and it is very sensitive. Both my internet connection and my wireless reception are very reliable. I love my children very much. My spouse and I work hard to ensure we are meeting our kids' needs physically, mentally, and emotionally. We don't use phones, tablets, or TV to babysit our kids, so we can do stuff around them, but not with them. The event: I had a small get-together with some friends in town. It's 6 blocks from my house. It feels like 3, but it is 6. Before leaving, I double-checked the monitor and made sure my daughter was asleep. I took my golf cart to the get-together. I knew I would be down there for 2 to 3 hours before my spouse would get home. My spouse and I were on the same page with this decision. I had a friend that got very upset with me about this decision, and some of the things that they said about me have pissed me off and rubbed me the wrong way. Am I the astronaut for leaving my daughter at home in this specific situation? Things for consideration. The biggest indictment of my decision is, what if something happens? Well, I've thought about that, and I believe that to be a boogeyman question. I prefer to consider much more specific questions and risks. What if she stops breathing? I sleep 8 hours at night. There are so many times when I am under the same roof as her, and if she were to randomly stop breathing, I wouldn't know it for hours, and being home would benefit me 0. What happens if someone were to come in the home and take her? A, small town where everyone knows everyone. Again, the type of town where young elementary age kids are permitted to walk the town park and play without adult supervision. B, the same thing could happen with some of our younger babysitters. What if she starts crying? She's safe in her crib. If she starts crying, I hop on my golf cart and run home quickly. What if you get hurt or have a medical emergency and can't return home? What if I have a heart attack in my home? The emergency argument is just as likely while I'm home alone as when I'm out with others. What if there's a fire? I primarily trust the odds on this one, especially considering time away and distance from home. Top comment: YTA. This isn't just being an asshole. This is called child neglect. Assume the following statements apply if you live in the U.S. There is a common misconception that CPS is a bunch of child-stealing assholes who like to break up functional families and take kids And this simply is not true. The vast, huge majority of family and CPS interactions end with the child staying right at home. This includes the vast majority of cases even when abuse or neglect has been substantiated. That's right, folks. Social workers don't actually want to take your kids. They do it as a last case, this child might actually die if we don't intervene, choice. Guess where your choice puts you? Yep, squarely in the last case scenario. Let's say for whatever reason your infant was discovered home alone. Let me tell you what would happen next. A, you and your husband would both be arrested. You're in a small town, so your names would be prominently featured in the local news, and depending on your state and local laws, it's entirely possible the headlines would be accompanied by lovely pictures of both your mugshots. B, your infant would be transported to the hospital without your consent, and you would most definitely not be allowed to accompany them. The whole actively being arrested and booked for child neglect thing, remember? At the hospital, your lone, terrified baby would be subjected to a very invasive exam looking for signs of physical and sexual abuse, as well as any sign of long-term physical or medical neglect. C, child services will be contacted by the sheriff, police, EMS, and emergency room, and, not or, each agency would separately fill out a legally mandated suspected child abuse or neglect form. And trust me, when that mountain of paperwork shows up, it's noticed. The social worker would take emergency custody of your baby. You would not be consulted on this, nor would you have any legal standing to prohibit it. In fact, you're probably still busy being booked and or getting transported to whichever jail your county does overnight before you see a judge, because your small town sure as heck does not have those required accommodations. E, your baby will be placed in a foster home. That might, if you are very lucky, be a family member. More likely, it will be someone within your state who is licensed but has no connection with your baby. F, that emergency stay will last anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks, and that is just the legal maximum allowed before a case must go before a family judge. This, of course, assumes there's no case backload. I've seen emergency placements last for months, not because of cruelty of child services or the courts, but because the docket is booked. G, you will come before the judge. Child services will present their case, and I can assure you that most definitely, unless you are wildly lucky, the judge will approve continued placement with child services until child services determines whether you are a fit parent for your child to return to. Honestly, the best case outcome, 6 months later after intensive family involvement, parenting classes, drug testing, supervised visits, your baby comes home again. And that's pretty rarely a best case outcome. Stop being an asshole.
It's been a bad day. Things were going well, and then I made it to the gym. First mistake. I head to the squat rack because it's peach season. I've told you all about this. I'm trying to grow my peach. So I'm working on my fitness, focusing on my form, when all of a sudden I feel a rumbling. Something hits me and it wasn't a gain. So I drop the squat rack, and I think I have to use the restroom. So I start to scurry, make my way there when all of a sudden someone steps in front of me. It was a beautiful girl. She says, "Hey, oh my gosh, I never do this, but I follow you on TikTok." She probably thinks I'm a bitch. I said, "Hello, nice to meet you." Normally, it makes my heart swell, but this time, my anus was doing the swelling. So I said, "Nice to meet you." I sidestep around her, basketball move. Get to the bathroom. I think all is well. I've never felt anything like this inside of me. You see, I've changed up my routine. I've added collagen peptides because I thought it was a girl who could do that. Yeah, my skin's been glowing. Yeah, my nails are as sharp as tigers. Could rip right through you. But one thing they didn't tell me is that it aids in digestion. Wish I would have known. Anyway, I'm rumbling like a deep Jumanji drum beat. On the way into the bathroom, I get into the stall. No one's there. I sit down. I relieve myself. Everything's fine. Until I look to my right. Guess what I don't see? Toilet paper. And yeah, it wasn't on the left either. So I think, okay. I don't know if you need to get your eyes checked, but I'm wearing white. So I can't hide. You know what I mean? I can't just pull it up and scurry. These pants won't touch what's unknown. So I put my head out of the stall. I look to the left, no one's there. I look to the right, no one's there. I look above me just in case, no one's there. I think, okay, Teresa. Tights at my knees. I've got to make a break for it to the next stall. I thrust the door open. I spin. I start to waddle that way when all of a sudden I hear behind me. I turn around. It's my follower. I think I'm about to make eye contact, but her eyes were glued to my shitty ass. hey. She goes, oh my God. I said, yeah, oops. Get into the next stall, close it. She saw into the abyss. So Katie, if you're out there, I'm sorry, but you're blocked.
Not only was my dad just like abusive and fucking crazy, but he was just like really weird. I was on a hike with my best friend today and she was like, remember how fucking weird your dad was? It had me thinking like, oh my God, yeah. Like besides him being absolutely batshit, narcissistic, fucking insane, he's also just like really fucking weird. For example, he would bike a lot. He would wear this leotard. Like he would wear a woman's gymnastics leotard. Like, not even the normal biking leotard for men. It literally looked like he was trying to be Simone Biles and like wore a leotard. Mind you, I really did not like my dad because he was abusive. And this one time, I'll never forget it. I was hanging out with my friends and like guy friends, and then my crush was there, right? And my dad fucking bikes by in his leotard like he's on his way to gymnastics practice. And he waved to me and I completely fucking ignored him. One, like I said, I really did not like the man. Like I told everybody that man was my stepfather. I was like, yeah, that's like my stepdad. I don't even know my real dad. I don't know why my mom married my stepdad. That's how embarrassed I was that he was my fucking father. Even because of the leotard. I wasn't embarrassed because of the leotard. I was embarrassed because he was abusive. I'm sitting here flirting with my crush being like, yeah, that's my stepdad. This motherfucker pulls over and he was like, when I waved to you, fucking wave back to me. Why the fuck wouldn't you wave back to me? Like going off on me in his fucking leotard. And my dad starts to pull my ear in front of my crush because like whenever we got in trouble, he would just pull the fuck out of my ear. I'm like, he's like, you better fucking say hi to me the next time. I'm like, yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And then he like drove off. I looked at my crush and I was like, oh my God, that's my stepdad. Like, it's my stepdad. He thinks he's like my real dad. I remember going home that day being like, Mom, Dad literally like abused me in his leotard. And she was like, oh honey, like whatever. So it would say like weird fucking things and like you kind of just like had to laugh, but I would just be sitting there like, what the fuck is wrong with this man? The nickname he had for like my best friend would be Chopper. Nobody knew what the fuck Chopper meant, but she would always walk in and he would be like, Chopper's here. And I'd be like, why are you even speaking? Like it was the kind of vibe, like if you didn't laugh, you knew he would flip on a fucking dime. So like you just had to laugh, but I would just be sitting there like, this like really isn't fucking funny. Like I've never found this man funny. I would low-key judge the shit out of my mom. I'd like 15 years old, I'd be like, you literally married that? And she was like, wait till you get married one day. I'd be like, I'm literally never marrying that. Like I would never do that. The worst was like anytime that we entered the kitchen, like me, my sisters, my mom, anybody, we had to let him know why we were in the kitchen and like what we were getting. I would tiptoe my ass downstairs because nobody wants to be like, I'm getting kettle chips and string cheese. Like what the fuck? Like him screaming, who's there, is like fucking ingrained in my memory forever. And I'd be like, it's the fucking president. Like who do you think is here? Those are just some weird fucking things that my dad would do. And it like is scarred in my memory.
Am I overreacting, asking my mother-in-law to stop relaying everything I do to my wife when she's visiting? Preface, my wife does not seek out this information. We have Ring cameras in the garage and house, so it's not that hard for her to tell what I am doing during the day. I also get along decently well with my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law is visiting for a month to help out because my wife is pregnant and wanted her to give us a little breathing room. We have a 2-year-old daughter and haven't had much help with her at all, no family close by, so we've not had date nights or anything like that in a while. My wife thought it'd be nice to have someone over for a while so we could enjoy some time together before the second baby arrives and we're back to zero sleep and being tired all the time. Hold up. So Opie, your wife's solution to giving you more time together was to have her mom come stay with you? In general, I get along with my mother-in-law. She's pretty old-fashioned, and we have had some rough patches when our daughter was younger. My wife works about 4 days a week from 7 to 5 in an office. I work 5 days a week from 7 to 5 from home. I occasionally run errands on work days. For instance, I injured my shoulder a few months ago and had a follow-up appointment. I usually run to the bank at least every other week. Sometimes I go pick up lunch, etc. I notice now that my mother-in-law is visiting my wife and will often ask me, "Oh, you went out today? Where did you go?" It also materializes in other ways. Wife asked me, "My mom said you were upstairs for about an hour today. What were you doing?" Was having a meeting out of earshot for mother-in-law. Or mom said you got a package today, but you took it straight to our room. What was it? My mom said you ordered DoorDash again. She thinks we're ordering takeout too much. Oh, it's all monotonous shit and I'm not doing anything shady, but I can't help but feel like I have zero privacy with her in the house. And when I asked her to stop relaying everything, she flipped it on me like I'm trying to be suspicious. I'm not trying to be suspicious. I don't feel good having my every move in and out of the house tracked and having to account for everything I do every week. My wife mostly doesn't care, but can't help herself to at least ask when it's brought to her attention. I told her it's highly annoying and asked if she could also ask her mom to stop. She said she's told her mom multiple times that she doesn't need to hear my daily itinerary, but then mom is insistent on telling my wife anyways. Also, for what it's worth, my wife can pretty much track me anytime via the car. We share an Amazon account, and I don't feel like I need to justify food delivery to my mother-in-law. Am I overreacting?